Chapter 1. The Blade and the Burning Heart. The thing about going back to hell, Karlach said, was that everyone imagined it as a dramatic descent, a fall, a plunge, a terrible screaming tumble through fire and brimstone with choirs wailing and devils laughing and someone shouting something poetic about doom. That is not how it happened, Wyll said. Karlach leaned back in the booth and pointed at him. Exactly. Tell them. Wyll considered this with the grave expression of a man being asked to deliver testimony before a magistrate, a priest, and several drunk friends. It was less a descent, he said, and more a tactical retreat under distressing emotional circumstances. Astarion blinked. That is the least romantic way anyone has ever described fleeing to hell with the woman he loves to keep her from burning to death. Wyll's ears coloured. Karlach looked delighted. See, she said, that's why I tell it better. I was being accurate. You were being Wyll. An affliction, Astarion said, lifting his wine, but a noble one. Shadowheart propped her chin on one hand. Her hair, pale as moonlight now, caught the tavern glow and softened it. Let Karlach tell it. She uses fewer legal phrases. Gale, pipe in hand, looked wounded on Wyll's behalf. Precision is hardly a crime. No, Shadowheart said, but it does sometimes make a story arrive wearing boots full of mud. Karlach slapped the table. Right, so, there we were. Docks, smoke, screaming, big brain dead, gods thoroughly embarrassed, city somehow still standing, and me— Her voice caught. Only for a breath. But everyone at the table knew how to hear a breath. Karlach looked down at her hands. They were broad, scarred, still faintly warm enough that condensation never lasted on any cup she held. Her fingers flexed against the wood, as if remembering the heat that had once climbed through them without permission. Me, she said again, quieter. Burning up? The tavern shifted around them, the ordinary sounds blurred, chair legs, clinking glasses, the rain beginning at last against the windows. The story pulled the room back to that day, to salt air and ruined stone and victory that had tasted like ash. Wyll's hand moved under the table a small question. Karlach answered by lacing her fingers through his. At the time, Gale said gently, we thought Avernus was the only option. It was, Wyll said. There was no hesitation in it, no ornament. Just the clean, hard shape of a truth he had made peace with because the alternative was unbearable. Karlach nodded. Yeah, it was. She had wanted so badly to stay. That was the part she had never managed to explain right. Not because the others did not understand. They had understood too well. That had been part of the cruelty of it. They had stood there with the city saved, and the sunlight coming up like some idiot bard had ordered it special for the occasion. And all Karlach had wanted was to stay in it. To stay on the docks, to stay with her friends, to stay where the air smelled of salt and smoke and fish guts and not sulphur. To stay where the whole world had opened itself up again only to look at her and say, not for you. Her engine had hammered in her chest like an animal trying to claw out. Too hot, too fast, too close to the end. Every second outside Avernus had been a match struck under her skin. I thought that was it, Karlach said. Honestly, I did. I thought we'd won everything except me. Shadowheart's mouth tightened. Astarion looked into his glass as though something fascinating had appeared at the bottom. Nothing had. He looked anyway. Gale's pipe gave a sympathetic little puff and produced a smoke ring shaped like a frowning skull. Astarion pointed at it without looking up. That thing is doing emotional commentary now. It is not, Gale said. The skull sighed and dissolved. Gale looked at it. Not intentionally. Karlach smiled, grateful for the interruption even if she would never admit she needed it. Anyway, she said, there I was, ready to do something stupid and brave. You were ready to die, Wyll said. She did not look at him. Same thing sometimes. No. His voice softened but did not bend. Not that day. Karlach swallowed. For a moment the tavern vanished, and she was back on the docks, heat swallowing her lungs, Wyll in front of her with his hands open and his eyes bright with terror. He was too brave to hide. "Come with me." Not a command, never that. A plea. A promise. A hand held out over a drop. Astarion's voice cut through the memory, gentler than usual despite himself. "I will admit, Ravengard, the begging was quite effective." Wyll closed his eyes. "I was not begging." "You were absolutely begging," Shadowheart said. "With dignity?" Gale added. Karlach turned to Wyll, eyebrows high. "You were on the edge of tears, soldier." I was concerned. "You said my name like it was the only word left in the world." Wyll's blush deepened to a point that even the candlelight could not politely obscure. Astarion pressed a hand to his chest. "Oh, that's ghastly. Say more." Wyll shot him a look. "I will not." Karlach leaned into Wyll's shoulder, grinning now through something wetter than laughter. He did, though. He said, "Karlach, please." Just like that, all noble and broken. I tell you, a woman's heart nearly explodes once and suddenly everyone's dramatic. "Your heart was literally exploding," Gale said. "See? Dramatic." Wyll's thumb moved over her knuckles. "You said yes," he said. Karlach looked at him. The room quieted again, but this time she did not look away. "Yeah," she said. "I did." She had said yes because she wanted to live, not because she wanted hell, not because she was fearless, not because she was done with Baldur's Gate or ready to forgive the universe for being a bastard. She had said yes because Wyll had looked at her like her life was not an epilogue, like she was not a beautiful tragedy to be honoured and mourned, like she was a person with another page waiting if she would only turn it. She had said yes because he was offering to go with her. Then, she told the table, everything smelled awful. Astarion lifted his head. "Ah, there she is." "Avernus," Karlach continued, "does not ease you in. No lovely welcome mat. No fruit basket. No little devil saying, 'Thank you for choosing eternal torment. Please enjoy your stay.' It just hits you." "Heat," Wyll said. "Metal." "Blood." "Dust." "Old magic." "Bad decisions." "That last one may have been us," Wyll admitted. "Speak for yourself. I am an excellent decision." "You are several excellent decisions in a dangerous coat." Karlach's grin turned blinding. "Gods, I love when he says things." Wyll looked down as if the table had developed fascinating grain. Shadowheart, dry as bone, said, "He does make speeches. It would be awkward if you hated it." "I don't hate it. He could read a tax ledger and I'd kick my feet." Wyll made a sound halfway between a cough and surrender. Astarion leaned toward Gale. "Do you think if we leave, they'll notice?" "Yes," Gale said, "but only eventually." "Good enough." "You're staying," Shadowheart said. Astarion sighed. "Tyranny." Karlach did not apologize. Wyll, to his credit, looked only mildly like he wished to disappear into his collar. "The first thing I noticed," he said, perhaps to rescue himself, "was that her breathing changed." Karlach's smile softened. In Avernus, the fire in her chest had steadied. Not cooled, never cooled, but steadied. The engine had still been there, still infernal, still wrong in the shape of her body, but the place that had made it did not reject it. The hells took her heat and answered it. For the first time since the Nautiloid, she had not been running from the next heartbeat. "That was the rotten joke of it," she said. "I could breathe there. I could stand there. I could live there." "But not live," Wyll said. "No." She squeezed his hand. "Not really." The distinction had mattered more every day. At first, survival had been enough because survival had to be enough. Avernus did not give a person room to mourn properly. It kept throwing things with teeth at them. They had landed in a field of black glass and red dust, with the sky above them cracked open and crawling. Somewhere far off, war machines screamed across the plains. The horizon burned without moving. Everything smelled of hot iron and something that had once been meat. Karlach had taken one breath, then another, each one a miracle she resented. Wyll had watched her do it. "Stop that," she had said, and "Stop what?" "Looking like that." "How am I looking?" "Like you're counting." He had been. Counting breaths. Counting seconds. Counting the difference between dying and not dying. Counting the fact that his own hands were shaking now that they had done the impossible thing and still lost the world they had saved. "I was relieved," he said in the tavern. "You were terrified." "Both can be true." "They were," Karlach said. The first ambush had come before they had been in Avernus 10 minutes. 8, Wyll said. Karlach pointed at him. "You kept track?" "I had hoped to beat 15. Astarion groaned. "Of course you set a survival benchmark." "It seemed practical. It seems unbearable." "It was Avernus," Shadowheart said. "Everything there is unbearable." "Not everything," Karlach said. Wyll looked at her. Astarion groaned louder. "I walked right into that." The ambush had been imps at first, a cloud of them shrieking with delight, dropping from a ridge of slag like ugly fruit. Karlach had still been wiping tears off her face when the first one swooped at her. She had caught it by the ankle. "Oh," she had said, and the grin that split her face then had been half grief and half glorious violence. "I can work with this." She had thrown the imp into another imp. Wyll had drawn his blade and moved with her before either of them had spoken a plan. They were exhausted, half-broken, newly exiled from hope. And they fought like the world had made the mistake of leaving them something to hit. "That part was good," Karlach said. "You were crying." "And punching. Women can contain multitudes." "A valuable reminder," Gale said. "Write it in your diagram," Karlach told him. Gale's eyes lit up. "No," Shadowheart said. He dimmed. They had fought until the black glass cracked under their boots, and the imps either died, fled, or reconsidered their career paths. When the last one vanished into the red sky, Karlach had bent double with her hands on her knees, laughing so hard she nearly fell over. Wyll had tried to ask if she was all right. The question had died in his mouth because all right had become a stupid little phrase, too small, too polite, too Baldur's Gate. Karlach had looked up at him through smoke and tears. "Still here?" she had said. He had understood that this was the new answer to everything. Still here. Not safe, not healed, not free, but still here. For a while that had been enough to move their feet. They had found shelter in the shell of something that might once have been a fortress or a god's discarded helmet. In Avernus, the architecture did not care to explain itself. The walls leaned inward, all ribs and rust. Something scratched behind one of them for 3 hours. Karlach named it Geoffrey and told it to keep the noise down. "It did," Wyll said. "Respect," Karlach said. "Geoffrey knew." They slept in shifts for 3 days, or what passed for days. Avernus had light and dark the way an infected wound had colour, technically with no comfort attached. Time stretched and snapped, the sky pulsed red, then black, then red again. Karlach could feel the place in her engine, feel the awful harmony of it, and hated that it kept her alive. Wyll, stripped of Mizora's power after the fall of the Absolute, had needed to relearn the shape of himself. Not all at once. He still carried a blade. He still knew how to stand between danger and the person behind him. But there were moments his hand moved for magic that did not come, and the absence flashed across his face before he could hide it. Karlach had seen, of course she had seen. "Don't," he had said the first time. "I didn't say anything." "You were about to." "I was about to ask if you wanted the last bit of dried whatever that is." "It is mushroom." "Is it?" It was sold to me as mushroom. By a devil? Yes. Then it's probably toe. Wyll had looked at the strip in his hand. Karlach had taken it from him and eaten half. There! Now if it's toe, we're in it together. He had laughed then, unexpectedly, a short burst of sound that had startled them both. That laugh had been one of the first things Avernus had failed to take. In the tavern, Karlach told that part with great pride. He was very gloomy at first. Wyll arched a brow. I was processing. You were brooding. I do not brood. Astarion snorted. Wyll looked at him. You are disqualified from this discussion. On the contrary, I am an expert. He was doing that thing where he stares into the distance like a statue someone disappointed, Karlach said. I had recently lost my warlock powers. And been transformed into a devil-marked man by the very patron who then created the arrangement. And followed the woman I love into hell. Karlach leaned forward, elbows on the table, chin in her hands. Say that bit again. Wyll immediately blushed fully. Astarion set his glass down. No, I agree. Say it again. For the minutes. Gale's pipe puffed, producing a tiny quill made of smoke. Absolutely not, Wyll said. Karlach's grin was pure wickedness. The woman you what? Wyll looked at her, and for all his embarrassment, he did not dodge it. The woman I love, he said. The words were quieter than her teasing had asked for. Warmer, meant not for the table, though the table heard them anyway. Karlach's face changed. Every time it seemed to surprise her, as if love spoken plainly was still an arrow she had not learned how to dodge, or maybe did not want to. Yeah, she said, and the word came out rough. That one. Shadowheart looked away, smiling into her cup. Astarion made a show of inspecting his nails. Gale, wisely for once, said nothing. The story moved on because it had to. Avernus did not let anyone remain tender for long. Survival became routine in the way terrible things sometimes did. They learned which ridges hid raiders, which stretches of dust were actually the backs of sleeping things, which pools of dark liquid reflected the future, and which only dissolved boots. Karlach knew more than she wanted to know. She had spent 10 years in Zariel's service, 10 years fighting in the Blood War, 10 years learning the ugly geography of violence. But returning with Wyll changed the map. Places she had once marched through as a weapon now had names in her mouth. Warnings, jokes, memories she could choose to say out loud, or not. That trench, she had said on their 6th knot day, pointing with her axe. Don't go near it. Why? Teeth. The trench has teeth? Everything has teeth if you're unlucky enough. They had gone around. That tower, she said later, full of devils who think riddles are a personality. We should avoid it. Absolutely. Unless we get bored. We will not get bored. You say that now. They did get bored. They did not go to the tower. Wyll, when pressed, admitted this had required effort. Their first real lead came from a dying war machine. Not a driver, not a devil. The machine itself. It lay half-buried in a basin of ash, ribs of iron jutting into the sky, wheels cracked, furnace belly cooling in great shuddering breaths. Karlach had approached it with a wary familiarity that made Wyll's chest ache. Careful, he said. She glanced back. You say that like I was planning to lick it. I have learned not to assume. Rude. Accurate. Also rude, the machine groaned. Not metal settling, not wind. A voice. Old, burned, full of cinders. It spoke in infernal first. Karlach's expression hardened. Wyll caught only fragments then. Engine, heart, prototype, return. The machine had been one of Zariel's old carriers, it seemed, or had carried old soldiers, or had listened to them scream long enough that it remembered their secrets. Avernus was not particular about the boundaries between witness and accomplice. "What's it saying?" Wyll asked. Karlach did not answer right away. Her hand had gone to her chest. "It knows my engine." The machine hissed, venting sparks. In the glow, symbols flared across its cracked side, not writing so much as scars arranged into meaning. Blueprints. Not the word exactly, but close enough that Karlach went still. "Blueprints?" Wyll said. The machine's furnace coughed. Somewhere behind them, imps laughed in the rocks. Karlach crouched in front of the dying thing. "Where?" It answered with a rattle of chains deep in its belly. A name, a place, a rumour wrapped in smoke. A ledger house that had once served Zariel's quartermasters. A Cambion who knew too much and laughed at the wrong times. A forge beneath old battlefields, where infernal engines had first been shaped for mortal bodies. The machine died before it finished. Of course it did. "Dramatic bastard," Karlach muttered. Wyll stared at the cooling iron. "Do you believe it?" "No." He waited. Karlach stood, dusting ash from her hands. "But I want to." That was enough. Want became direction. Direction became movement. Movement became something dangerously close to hope. "Did you know then," Shadowheart asked from across the tavern table, "that it might actually be possible?" Karlach snorted. "Absolutely not." Wyll shook his head. "We knew only that there was a thread." "A thread in hell," Gale said. "Yes." Famously stable environment for threads. "Gale," Shadowheart said. "No, he's right," Karlach said. "It was probably stupid." "Most worthwhile ventures are, initially," Gale said. Astarion lifted his glass. "That is not the lesson you were supposed to take from our lives." "It may be too late," Wyll said. "So you followed a dying war machine's rumour?" Shadowheart asked. Karlach grinned. "When you say it like that, it sounds bad." "It sounds like you," Astarion said. "Thank you." It was not a compliment. "I'm taking it." Following the thread meant crossing 3 days of open ash under skies full of things with wings. It meant hiding beneath the skeleton of a dead infernal crawler while a patrol passed so close Karlach could smell the brimstone oil on their armour. It meant Wyll talking a gang of devils out of a fight by sounding so impossibly reasonable that Karlach had nearly ruined it by laughing. "You did the voice," she said. Wyll sighed. "I negotiated." "You did the blade voice." "It worked?" "It did." One of them looked ready to sign up for etiquette lessons. Astarion held up a finger. "There is a blade voice." "Thank you," Karlach said. "I did not agree to this." "You never do." They found the ledger house at the edge of a canyon filled with frozen lightning. It had not been a house in any domestic sense. No hearth, no windows, no softness. It was a long, black structure built from fused shields and the rib bones of something too large to contemplate. Chains hung from the eaves, each link etched with a name. Karlach stood before it for a long while. Wyll did not ask why. Some places in Avernus were not just places. They were remembered by the body. "I came through here once," she said finally. "Years ago." "As a soldier?" "As cargo first," the word dropped between them. "Cargo!" Wyll's hand tightened on his sword. Karlach glanced at him. "Don't make the sad, angry face." "I am not making a face." "You are. It's very handsome. Stop it." "I cannot promise that." "No, suppose not. Face just does what it likes." "Apparently." She looked back at the chains. "I don't remember all of it," she said. "Not clean. I remember being furious. I remember biting someone. Naturally. I remember thinking if I could just get one hand free, I'd kill the first thing that touched me." Wyll was silent. "Then they took me somewhere else. To the engine. To the forge, maybe. Don't know. It's all heat. He stepped closer, not touching her yet. Karlach. Don't. She shook her head. Not yet. So he did not. That was one of the ways he loved her best. By not reaching when she needed space. By standing near enough that space did not become abandonment. She turned from the chains. Right, she said, let's rob the bastards. Wyll smiled. Now that, he said, is a plan. The Ledger House did not welcome them. It noticed them. Doors in Avernus rarely opened. They considered. This one considered Karlach for long enough that she raised a hand and made a rude gesture. It opened. Effective, Wyll said. I have many talents. Inside, the air was colder than it had any right to be. Shelves towered in the dark, packed with ledgers bound in hide and metal. Some whispered. Some clicked their clasps like teeth. A few sighed names as they passed. Wyll hated it immediately. Do not touch anything unless we must, he said. Karlach, already reaching toward a ledger, froze. I wasn't. You were. I was assessing. With your fingers? My fingers are part of my assessment process. Please assess visually. She grumbled but obeyed. And then they heard something they weren't expecting. A ledger whispered Wyll's name. Not loudly, not clearly. A breath of syllables from the end of an aisle, soft as a secret being pleased with itself. Ravengard. Wyll stopped. Karlach stopped with him. The shelves around them clicked and murmured, ledgers shifting in their chains like dogs scenting blood. Did that just say your name? Karlach asked. Wyll's face had gone still. My family name. That's not better. No, he said. It is not. The ledger sat half-hidden between two larger volumes, bound in dark red hide with a clasp shaped like a hooked finger. There was no title on the spine, only a mark pressed into the cover. Not Mizora's name, not exactly, but a curl of infernal script Karlach had seen before on things that smiled too much. Wyll reached for it. Karlach caught his wrist. He looked at the ledger. The clasp opened before he touched it. The pages turned on their own, fluttering through lines of infernal, names, dates, routes, payments, observations. Wyll read in silence at first. Then the colour drained from his face. Karlach stepped closer. What? His eyes moved over the page again, as if the second reading might become kinder. It is a watcher's record. Watching what? His throat worked. Baldur's Gate, the Ravengard household, my father's patrols, political rivals, cult movements, vulnerable points in the city's defences. Karlach's fingers curled. The ledgers around them whispered. Wyll turned another page. There, in red ink, was a note written with elegant cruelty. Subject, Wyll Ravengard. Age, 17. Temperament, valorous, impressionable, high susceptibility to sacrificial framing. Strong paternal conflict potential. Useful access through crisis. Karlach swore. Wyll did not move. Another line crawled into place beneath the first. Recommended approach. Existential threat to city. Offer rescue under compressed decision window. Ensure isolation. Emphasize heroic necessity. The Ledger House seemed suddenly colder. Karlach looked at Wyll. He was staring at the page like it had opened inside him. She knew, he said. Karlach's voice came low. Wyll. She knew what I would choose. His hand tightened on the edge of the page. No, Karlach said. She knew what fear to put in front of you. The distinction mattered. She could feel it matter even if Wyll could not yet hold it. The ledger rustled, eager to continue. A final line burned itself across the page. Acquisition priority. Son of Ravengard. Long-term leverage value significant. Wyll closed the book. The sound cracked down the aisle. For a moment, Karlach thought he might throw it. She would have respected that. Instead, he set it back on the shelf with hands so controlled they shook. I had suspected, he said quietly. You had? Mizora always arrived too perfectly in the memory. Too prepared. Too delighted by my lack of options. He swallowed. But suspicion is a fog. This is ink. Karlach reached for him, then stopped before touching. He noticed. After a moment, he held out his hand. She took it. The ledger house whispered around them, dissatisfied that pain had become private. Wyll's grip was cold. "She did not find me," he said. Karlach squeezed his hand. "No." She arranged the road. "Looks like." And waited at the end with a pen. Karlach's anger rose clean and bright. "Then we remember that." Wyll looked at her. "For later," she said, "when we find her." Something changed in his eyes. Not healing. Not yet. A mark made deeper because now he knew where it began. "Yes," he said, "for later." While they stood there, holding that revelation, they found the record they had come there for. Not because it wanted to be found, but because it hated being ignored. A ledger near the back began to glow when Karlach passed it. Not bright, not friendly. A dull, ember-red pulse, like banked coals under ash. Her name was not on the cover. That would have been too kind. The mark on the cover was a crown. Not a royal crown. Not exactly. Something older, sharper. A circlet of power drawn by someone who had never loved anything that did not kneel. Wyll saw it. Karlach saw him see it. "Gortash," she said. Wyll did not answer. He opened the ledger. That had been a mistake. Or a necessity. In stories, the two often wore the same coat. The ledger screamed, not with a mouth, with ink, with heat, with every name written inside trying to become sound at once. Wyll staggered back. Karlach caught him by the shoulder. Chains rattled on the shelves. Somewhere deep in the house, something woke. "Quick read?" Karlach asked. Wyll's eyes scanned the page, jaw tight. "Transfer record," he said. "Mortal asset. Infernal engine candidate. Payment received in consideration of privileged intelligence and root access." "Say that in normal words." His face had gone pale. "Karlach." She knew that tone. "What?" This was not simple betrayal. Yeah, gathered that from the screaming book. The bargain references Zariel's quartermaster seal, Mephistopheles, Cania, a crown. The room seemed to lean inward. Karlach took the ledger from him. The words crawled in infernal, but she could read enough. Mortal asset. Engine candidate. Valuable. Payment. For a second, she was not in the ledger house. She was in Gortash's office years before, laughing at something he had said because he had been clever then, charming in that oily way men sometimes were when they had already decided the world owed them applause. She had been younger, not foolish, never foolish, but loyal, proud to be useful, proud to be trusted, proud to be seen. Her hand tightened on the ledger until the cover smoked. "Karlach," Wyll said. She threw the book across the aisle. It struck a shelf. 3 ledgers shrieked in protest. Something below them answered. "Right," she said. "Time to leave." They ran. Astarion leaned forward despite himself. "You threw the screaming infernal ledger? It looked throwable." "Was it?" "Very." Gale pinched the bridge of his nose. "You threw a primary source. I threw evidence. You threw history." "I threw a book that called me an asset, Gale." Gale lowered his hand. "Then," he said, with great solemnity, "it deserved it." Shadowheart raised her glass. "To throwing books that have it coming." "I cannot endorse this as a general principle," Gale said. "You just did," Astarion said. "I endorsed a specific act under duress." "Coward." The ledger house collapsed behind them. Not immediately. First, it sent things after them, chain imps, parchment wights, a long-limbed archivist with wax where its face should have been. Then, Karlach set 3 shelves on fire, and Wyll cut through a door that might have been a throat, and the house decided perhaps this matter could be pursued by correspondence. They burst into the red canyon breathing hard, covered in ash and ink. Karlach had a strip of ledger page stuck to her shoulder. Wyll pulled it off before it could bite her. "Anything useful?" she asked. He looked at the scrap. A name had written itself there in red. "Florenta the Garroter." Karlach stared. Then, despite everything, she laughed. Wyll frowned. "You know her?" "Oh, do I know Flo?" Karlach shook her head, still laughing. Of course that dramatic menace is mixed up in this." "Friend?" Karlach considered. In Avernus, friend was not a clean word. It came with soot on it. Teeth marks. Terms nobody signed, but everyone understood. "She sent me notes after I escaped," Karlach said. "Sulphur-reeking ones. Terrible handwriting. Mostly gossip." "Gossip?" "Vital gossip. Frug got stuck in a butter barrel once and rolled into a volcano." Wyll stared at her. "Sorry," he said. "I am still adjusting to the categories of vital information in hell." It was very funny. I don't doubt it. Zariel sent Flo out of the room because she laughed too hard. That does sound like a mark in her favour. It is. Karlach took the scrap from him. Flo's name pulsed faintly against the ash. "If anyone knows where these blueprints went," she said, "it's her." "And if she doesn't?" Karlach grinned, but there was something sharp under it now. "Then she'll lie beautifully until the truth gets jealous." The tavern table absorbed this in silence. Then Asterion said, "I like her already." "You would," Shadowheart said. "Anyone who irritates Zariel by laughing at a butter-related volcano incident has earned at least preliminary respect." Gale nodded. "Agreed, though I do have several questions about the thermal properties of butter in Avernus." "No," said everyone. The pipe puffed indignantly. Karlach leaned back, eyes on the tavern ceiling. For a while she seemed far away. Not lost, just looking at something the rest of them could not see. Wyll waited. At last, she said, "That was when it started to change." "What did?" Shadowheart asked. Karlach's fingers tapped once against her chest. "This." No one asked if she meant the engine or the story. Both, probably. "Before that," Karlach said, "Avernus was just the place I had to be, a cage big enough to walk around in. Fight, sleep, don't die. Repeat until something gets lucky." "And after?" Gale asked. "After there was a reason." Her voice had gone quieter, rougher. Maybe not a good one, maybe not even a sane one, but a thread. Blueprints. Flo. Gortash's name where it shouldn't be. The crown. The first little whiff of why. Wyll looked down at their joined hands. "She wanted a future," he said, "but she also wanted the truth." Karlach huffed. "Didn't say I wanted it." "No, you wanted to punch it. Usually a form of inquiry." "Not one I learned in court. Court could use more punching." Astarion raised his glass. "Here, here." Shadowheart sighed. "That explains several governments." Karlach's smile returned, but it was smaller than before. "Thing is, once you know there's a why, you can't unknow it. Bastard sells you to hell, you think you know the story. Greed, cruelty, ambition. Pick your poison. But then you find out there was paperwork. Seals. Roots. Crowns." She looked at Wyll. "Prices?" He nodded once. He understood. Of course he did. That, perhaps, was the part neither of them had expected when they stepped back into Avernus. Not merely survival, not merely love under pressure, but recognition. The terrible intimacy of realizing that hell had not taken either of them by accident. Karlach had been sold. Wyll had been chosen. "2 different doors, same house." But that part, Karlach said, came later. First came Flo. First came the road. First came the decision, made under a sky the colour of old wounds, that if hell had receipts, they were going to read every last one. And that, Karlach said, sitting forward, is how we went from try not to explode to let's follow a paper trail through the worst place in existence. Gale lifted his pipe. A perfectly natural escalation. Astarion looked at him. You would say that. It had structure. It had devils. Often the same thing. Shadowheart took a long drink. So you found flow. Karlach's grin sharpened. Oh, we found flow. Wyll exhaled through his nose, the faintest smile touching his mouth. More accurately, flow found us. Karlach pointed at him, and she made an entrance. Astarion settled back, pleased despite himself. At last, he said. Someone with manners. Karlach laughed. Outside, the rain finally began in earnest, tapping at the windows like fingers asking to be let in. Inside, the tavern glowed warmer for refusing it. Karlach raised her cup. To terrible ideas, she said. Wyll raised his beside hers. To following them wisely. Boring. To following them together. Karlach's smile softened. Better. Their cups touched, and the story went on.
Stone, iron dust in my teeth, hellfire in the distance, hot ground under our feet. Avernus keeps me breathing, but it don't let me live. I got a heart made out of murder, and a life I didn't give. Red road on the borrowed star, steel drawn at my side. I wear the shape she left me, but I will not wear her pride. I have been a blade on a chain, I have danced to a devil's art, but I will cut a road through ruin for the woman with the burning heart. The blade and the burning heart, walking where the wolf eyes start. No crown, no throne, no holy sign, just your hand reaching out for mine. If hell wants blood, if hell wants scars, we'll write our names across the dark. Side by side we tear it apart. The blade and the burning heart. I can laugh while the engines scream, I can grin through the pain, but I still dream of river rain cooling down my name. I don't need some golden ending, don't need fate to be kind. I just want one morning where I leave this heat behind. I have seen the contract smile, seen mercy priced in souls, seen heroes made into wanted, seen children paying tolls. But if there is a hidden door, if there is a buried chart, then I will find the hands that built the cage around your heart. Don't you go making promises you'll bleed yourself to keep. Don't you go calling survival the same thing as defeat. I am not some princess waiting for a night. No, you are the fire, and I am staying in the fire. The blade and the burning heart, walking where the warfire starts. No crown, no throne, no holy sign, just your hand reaching out for mine. If hell wants blood, if hell wants scars, we'll write our names across the dark. Side by side we tear it apart. hear that? War drums.
No worse gossip in Avernus that is usually more dangerous.
That imp said blueprints.
For infernal engines,
For mine, maybe.
then we follow it.
Could be a trap.
Almost certainly.
Good. I hate boring plans.
There are ledges under ashes. There are maps inside the bone. There are devils who remember what they swear they never know.
There's a forge beneath the battlefield
Where old war machines still groan.
and if one spark can change the engine,
Then maybe I can go home.
not just breathing,
Not just hiding,
not just waiting.
not just surviving. Give us fire we can answer.
Give us steel that we can snort.
Give me back my name, my future.
Give me back my living heart.
The blade and the burning heart.
Walking where the warfire starts.
No crown, no throne, no
Holy sign.
just your hand reaching out for mine.
If hell wants blood,
If hell wants scar,
we'll write our names across the dark. Side by side we tear it apart. The blade and the burning heart. If there's a road, we take it.
if there's a gate, we break it.
If there's a forge,
We find it.
if there's a future,